This is our monthly office hours. As always, we share everything in our Best for All strategy, and today we're talking about educators. I have two of my colleagues with me today, Tracy Riddle, who you probably know. She's the Director of Team. You may know her from the Portfolio or Alternative Growth Measure world. And Micah Fager, she is the Team Coordinator. I'm sure you have also met her. Today we're going to talk about identifying partial year exemptions, updating some staffing. There are a few other things I want to remind you of. We'll share some resources and next steps. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will answer all questions at the end, and you can put any questions you may have in the chat. So, State Board rule allows for educators who are employed for contracts of 120 days or less, and or who are not fully employed as a full-time employee to receive a partial year exemption for evaluations. So full-time educators who would otherwise receive an evaluation score may be eligible to receive the partial year exemption under certain circumstances. The educator has been on extended leave and cannot provide the 120 days of instruction required to receive an evaluation score. The educator may have transferred to a different school during the school year and cannot provide the 120 days of instruction. Or an educator has transferred to another role during the school year and will not provide 120 days of instruction to students. So these are possible reasons that teachers may be marked as PYE. Ultimately, the district makes that decision as to if this person should receive the PYE. Partial year exemptions are identified by the LEA or charter, and that is marked in TN Compass. Educators who receive a partial year exemption do not receive an evaluation score. They don't receive an LOE for that school year. There are two ways to set these in TN Compass. One is just from the educator's record. And the other way is to import. If you have a lot of PYEs that you're doing, you may want to use the import wizard to import those. You're very familiar with the import wizard, I'm sure, but to do this from the teacher's record, you just go into the teacher's record in that evaluation box with the basic information. There is a button at the top that says Set PYE. You click that button. It will open up another window. From that window, a drop down will open up, and you can see there are four options that you can choose from, or there's an other. If you choose other, you'll be able to it'll open up a text box that you can add information. So if the teacher is just a contract of 120 days or less, you just click that, hit the save button, and that teacher will be marked PYE. The other way is using the import wizard. That's from the administration tab. Under data management, you click the import wizard. You would, under evaluation data, you're going to use the partial year exemption spreadsheet. You choose your district, generate the template to begin with. It will ask you have the same question there when you get ready to mark the teacher. You'll have a list of your teachers. When you mark the teacher in the drop down, it's yes or no. So most of your teachers will be no. You would change that to yes for anybody who's a PYE. And then in the next column, there's a drop down, and it has the same options for you there. There is also an option to add a note for your other here. Then you go back to the import wizard. You select the same partial year exemption, and you click I already have a template. Continue, and you will upload that template. You choose the file. You'll go through the validate process and the process the data. Make sure that both of those steps are completed, and then your teachers will be marked PYE. There is an impact for teachers on being marked PYE, and it deals with the number of observations that are required. So teachers who are marked PYE in the previous year, so if you're marking a teacher PYE for this year, their pacing will be determined by their LOE from the school year immediately prior to the PYE. So it would be from 22-23, their LOE. For example, if you're looking at a teacher, if you had a teacher that was marked PYE in 2022-23, you're looking at their pacing for this year. Their pacing is based off of their LOE score from the 21-22 school year. If this teacher had not had an LOE for 21-22, then the pacing would be set to full, and they would have the maximum number of observations based on their license type. You also need to take this time to update any new staffing. You may have new people that have come on board after the break. People may have transferred positions after the break. So you need to update, add any new staff that you may have hired, and update roles and permissions as needed. If someone has become a principal or an assistant principal after Christmas and they were not, you need to go into TN Compass and make sure that staffing is updated. We also would ask that you update your LEA contacts. We use these LEA contacts to contact people in districts for various reasons, and we need these to be accurate. So you just go to the administration tab. A superintendent or superintendent designee, someone who is staffed as a superintendent or superintendent designee in TN Compass can do this. You go to the administration tab in TN Compass, you click on LEA contacts. It will open up and you select the contact type. Then you have a box to enter the name, the email, and the phone number, and then you have to click the save button. If somebody is serving in is contact for 2 or 3 areas, you can do those all at once. The second example shows that if you were adding me as a portfolio lead, the AGM lead, and the differentiated pay, you can do that all at once. And if you click save, that would make that person have all of those. Even if you don't have changes in your contacts, please go in and check those, particularly the email addresses. I know currently in our database, we have some incorrect emails. It's just a typo, but it causes a problem when we are trying to contact a group from our district, from our list. You should have one of each of these types. These are all. Again, make sure your emails addresses are typed correctly. I want to spend just a minute talking about the 22-23 LOE generation. 96% of the educators in the state have generated an LOE for 22-23. Y'all, that is fantastic. That is due to your hard work and all the work that you've done throughout the year to get the selections in, to get the scores put in, to get everybody's observations done. So I want to commend all of you for your hard work for that. Just to, my colleagues would tell you I've become obnoxious about this percentage. So I'm just going to brag on y'all for a little while. 39 districts and charters have generated 100% of LOAs available to them. 127 districts have generated between 95 and 100%. And 152 districts have generated from 90 to 100%. You can see we have a pretty high percentage rate from most of our districts and charters. That being said, I would still like for you to check to make sure if you have any missing measures or scores. Remember that achievement measure scores, the only ones that automatically populate are TVOS scores, TVOS composites. All of the other scores must be entered by the district. So if it says state assessments was their achievement measure, that is a success rate from the state assessments that you have to enter. Off-the-shelf assessments, grad rate, ACT, early post-secondary, industry certs, and any TVOS custom feeder options have to automatically be, they have to be entered by the district. They will not automatically populate. The easiest way for you to look for these missing scores would be to go to the Evaluation Scores by Educator report under the Report section. You download the report. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You can look in column AI, or Achievement Measure Scores. So anybody that doesn't have a score, they're not generating an LOE. You can also look in column AS, which is the growth score. If there's not a growth score there, they're not generating an LOE. You also need to look for their average observation score. They have to have 3 components: observation score, achievement measure score, and growth score to generate an LOE. Any teachers that are need to be marked PYE can still be marked PYE for 22-23. And the first thing you want to do is filter to your LOE column to blanks. You can enter achievement measures scores 2 ways, using an administrative edit from the individual's educator tab. If you don't have many, it may be easier for you to do it that way, or you can use the import wizard again to upload those scores. It is on the administration tab. You would use evaluation component scores to upload that. You go through the same process every time you use the import wizard. Choose the correct school year, hit continue. Just some troubleshooting tips. If there's no measure selection for a teacher, you can put that measure selection in on the teacher's record. You may have to use an administrative edit. TVAS scores, whether they're being used for achievement or growth, if they're not populating, first check to make sure that your school actually generated that measure. So if it's a social studies measure, make sure your school generated that. If the teacher is staffed at more than one school, I've seen this a lot. You have to set the master school in order for Encompass to know which school to pull that score from. So you do that from the teacher's record. There will be a box at the top beside the PYE box that says set master school. Check to make sure that the selected measure is a school level measure. If somebody's staffed is system-wide, then they have to have an LEA measure selected. And then if there's a custom feeder TVAS option, you have to upload that score. Those should only be used for a teacher in a school that does not generate its own TVAS. If the school generates any TVAS, the teacher should not be using a custom feeder option. Next steps. Ensure current partial year exemptions are entered into Encompass, updating your school staffing to reflect the changes in positions and to add any of your new hires. Check your staffing to ensure new administrators are staffed correctly and have the correct permissions. Review your LEA contacts, and also review your LOE generation for your district and enter any missing scores. Resources are on the team website. Our office hours will be posted there under the monthly office hours. There is PYE guidance on the state statute and policy page. And on the Encompass page, there is a new resource. It's District and School Staff Assignment Roles and Permissions. This is a quick guide that will walk you through how to add staff, how to assign permissions, and give you some guidance on those. And as always, you can email team questions with any questions you have. Our next office hour will be in February the 1st, and we're going to talk about making sure teachers are meeting pacing. We appreciate you joining us today. Sharing.
I have a few questions in the chat.
Okay, just a minute. I'm going to turn off the recording before we do that.